Huh,
There we go.
there we go. Yeah, where four old guys think they know better than today's youth on all things movie, TV, and video games. I'm going to ask you guys to bear with us because this is the first time we're doing a live podcast. Um, but I'd like to introduce my co-hosts, Ant.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today. Whether you'll be tuning in on Twitch. First time for all of us, so you know, jitters and just trying to get accustomed to this new platform for us. But hopefully, we're gonna have a fun show today. So thanks for bearing with us through these technical issues, and thanks for being here. How are you doing, Adrian?
Hello, everyone. Glad to see everyone doing well. So we're back with the first pod of 2022. I hope Santa got you some amazing games over the Christmas period, and looking forward to the first pod. So over to you, Sanj.
I mean, yeah, I can't say much else that you've already not said. So yeah, let's get on with it.
Cool. So we generally kick off with two different sections. We normally go with video games, and then we switch on to movies and TVs later on in the show. So Adrian, do you want to head up the video games area?
Yes, been looking forward to talking about this for a long time. So we're going to kick off with an absolute megaton of news. Microsoft have, of course, opened up the checkbooks again and purchased Activision Blizzard for a mammoth $70 billion, with the deal expected to close in 2023. So, been looking forward to discussing this. I'm going to ask everyone quick fire. Is this a good move, bad move? And then we could get into some in-depth discussion. So, Navs, no sitting on the fence. Is this a good move? Is it good move for good move for consumers, first of all, shall we say?
Right. So I think we actually discussed this on our first podcast. I believe we were talking about how the consolidation of the industry. I think at the time we were actually talking about how Microsoft had just bought Bethesda, and is that a good thing? We were also talking about Tencent and how they're like just buying up everybody left, right, and center. I personally like the move because I like Game Pass, and I think it's just generally good. Is it good for consumers? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want to be in a situation where like the little guys are being priced out of the market, or there are no more little guys. Like, consumers like competition. I want competition. But yeah, I mean, generally, I think it's a good move. What do you think, Ant?
Yeah, it's actually hard to say if it's a good move for the consumer. I think for Microsoft, it's definitely just adding to their success with Game Pass, and this acquisition is absolutely mega. It's huge. I'm curious to see how Sony respond, more than anything, to be honest with you. It kind of feels a bit like a Disney move in a sense where you got this company that are just mega rich and they can just buy up whatever property they want, and it kind of feels like Microsoft are, for the first time really spending their money and showing Sony, what they have under their belt, which is essentially a lot of money. And now they've got, so many studios on their team. But I'm just looking forward to seeing how this plays out in 3 years' time, because I don't think we're going to know for quite a few years how this is going to pan out and how Microsoft plan to use this acquisition and these new studios and what games they're going to be working on. I'm also interested to see how Activision change as a company. I don't know if they're going to stick to their usual COD formula, the formula of like releasing COD games every so often, because Sony is still going to have Call of Duty on their system. So I think they might get Activision to be working on some other games, and it's interesting. I don't know how much it affects me, but it's good to see, Microsoft kind of show Sony that, they're still in the game. And again, I want to see how Sony respond to this. What do you think, Sanj?
Yeah, like you said, it's not a simple answer to this question. It's for me personally, it's a good move because I'm a Game Pass subscriber, so I'm just going to get a whole load of other games as well. But as the general consumer, I think it's going to be a bad thing because not everyone's going to be on Game Pass, and there's 30 million COD players. I don't know what the exact breakdown of that is on what platform, like PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. But they're only contracted to have 3 more COD supposedly. So after that, it's going to force millions of people to join Game Pass, and they're going to have to like either buy a new console or buy a PC to get onto like the COD. So it's not a good thing there for like those people.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because do you honestly think that they're going to make COD an exclusive?
It depends. I mean, it's the biggest selling title for the last 13 years. COD every year has outsold every other game. So financially, it's a weird one because they don't need the money per se. So they want the Gamecast subscribers. So I do see them doing what they did with Bethesda, is like see out the current contracts they have with exclusives and then just bring over the titles to Game Pass when they can, and then make them exclusive.
I think the difference is here is COD with the free-to-play model brings in huge amounts of revenue. While Spencer is committed that the existing games and existing contracts will be honoured, I think there's just so much money, and Microsoft could be getting a cut out of that by leaving COD and Overwatch and some of those big properties multi-platform. I mean, they've got history of doing that with Minecraft. I personally think when the current contracts are expired and honoured, that all the IPs will be exclusive to Game Pass and to Xbox. But it's just an interesting conundrum that Microsoft have. Will they leave it third party and get that yearly revenue, or get the exclusive content, exclusive IP to their platform?
I feel like Phil Spencer's going to honour the previous agreement just for the time being, maybe for the next 3 years. But I think at some point it's going to be completely exclusive to Microsoft and Game Pass.
Well, here's the thing though, right? COD, over the last couple of years, fine, they've had their big releases every year, right? But Warzone has been bigger than any individual release of COD. And that's their moneymaker. And that's free to play. And that's not really in contract. That's like an ongoing thing. So why would they stop that on a PlayStation? Like, why would
supposedly no, Warzone 2 is part of that 3 deal.
Oh well,
3 title deal.
I mean, I would call Warzone like a living game. Like the modern software as a service game. Something that's gonna something's gonna live over 10 years. So like you can say Warzone 2, but what is Warzone 2? Is that just like additional maps, or is it like continuing the Warzone as a brand? I honestly don't think that they're gonna reduce. I mean, the last time Microsoft spent silly money, the last time I recall them spending silly money, how much did they buy Bethesda for? You guys recall?
7, just under 7 billion.
7. So yeah, so the last big money spend they kind of spent money on. So they spent more on Minecraft than they did on Bethesda. Minecraft, a single video game, that was around 10 billion. I've even been 15. Still not like 70, but the fact is that's still a multi-platform on every device possible game, because it was before and it was successful like that before. So why would they change? Why would they change the COD?
No, but that's what I'm saying. So they'll keep the next Warzone installment, whatever the upgrade is within the next 3 years, will be multi-platform. But then from that on, the standalone titles,
see, I think
like Black Ops, etc., will be exclusive.
Okay, so if you're telling me, so here's the thing. So you're telling me that so Warzone already is a 3-year-old game. Within the next 3 years, there's going to be Warzone 2. So by then, technically, if that's at the tail end of the 3 years, that's makes Warzone 1 a 6-year game, which to me sounds realistic. So then, in the 3 years, they're going to release a Warzone 2, which then effectively, I'm assuming they'd want that to be another 6-year game because they don't want to dump even more development in. You're talking about something that's going to affect PlayStation owners in 9 years' time, 3 years plus another 6 years for Warzone 2. So by then the landscape, I think, of the console industry would have changed. Streaming from the cloud would be much more of a thing. Would we even have consoles at that point, or would it just be services like Netflix?
Well, it's going to head that way eventually, isn't it? It's just a matter of when. Yeah. But I mean, you raise an interesting point, with Minecraft, but I look at that game. It's the most popular game there is, and you know, even more so than COD. But just for optics, do you not think Microsoft making COD exclusive is better for getting your average gamer on board? Because I don't think your average gamer, although Minecraft is massive, I don't think your average gamer on the street actually is too fussed about Minecraft. At least in the circles that I kind of move in, and people don't really care too much about Minecraft. So I think optically, having COD as your first party game is going to get a lot of people on board.
So this is where I think having like small children, like that's where the difference is between you and I. Is that in my daughter's community, she's 7 years old. Yeah. Every kid in her class plays Minecraft. They teach Minecraft in her programming classes because you can do programming and you can show systems and controls within that game world.
Mm-hmm.
Minecraft is at that level of huge. Kids today are being brought up, you know, talking a little bit about the name of our podcast. Kids today are being brought up with Minecraft. Yeah, so, you know, I get you hit a certain age and you want to play COD. You know, you want to shoot a zombie or shoot a Nazi in the face. Everybody does. It's a natural part of growing up, I think. But Minecraft is huge, and I don't think that's good. And I think Microsoft recognized that it was kind of part of that's one of the things that kind of made it was so ingrained in individuals. It's a huge game, and I think COD is the same as FIFA. It's almost like saying, so like Sony buys EA and then makes FIFA exclusive. It would be insane. I think from a business perspective, and from a consumers would look at them and say, like, look at what you guys are doing, and they'd get a lot of consumer hate. You know, Microsoft isn't silly. Like they don't want to turn around and have people say, oh, you're the company that took COD away.
But they're doing it with the Bethesda games. They've got no bones about doing it.
To me,
those franchises.
To me, Bethesda's more niche.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
those
casual
Bethesda
gamers play FIFA.
Those Bethesda games, though, are huge in their own right. You know,
Skyrim is huge in its own right, but as Sanj just said, you know, FIFA and COD, those are casual gamer games. You know, there are people who buy consoles and only have those two games, only buy those games every year. You don't hear that about Skyrim. You know, I bought a PlayStation 5 to play Skyrim. You know, that ain't happening.
So could I just put it out there? Could I just ask you guys personally, are there any games from Bethesda, Blizzard, Activision that you play religiously? Is there anything, although it's a massive acquisition, you know, they've spent a lot of money, are there any games from any of these acquired studios that you're looking forward to?
I think the thing with this is Activision Blizzard have got a lot of dormant IPs. You know, they've got Spyro, Crash Bandicoot,
Tony Hawk.
You call them dormant. Every single one of them's had remasters recently.
But I mean,
remasters.
They're probably not plugged as much as they could be. Guitar Hero. When was the last Guitar Hero?
Guitar Hero, Activision bled that IP to death to the point where, like, you know, they were releasing a Guitar Hero every year. I have a guitar sitting next to me right now. That's a Guitar Hero guitar. I have 4 of them upstairs in my attic. Like, they killed that themselves by over. They could
do like. Sorry, carry on, Nav. No, talking over you there.
No, it's fine.
They could do like a Guitar Hero VR, where you're actually on a stage and you see your guitar. There's places they can take it, I guess. They can bring these IPs back and change them up enough to warrant having a new game, I think.
Definitely, because Phil Spencer's spoken a lot about having more child-friendly games on the platform. And when the acquisition was announced, he spoke around having the Activision devs doing more than just being COD support studios. So, you know, you've got Raven Software, Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, Treyarch, loads of, you know, developers. I think Activision Blizzard are around 10,000 strong employee company. So I certainly think that they're going to look to diversify and tap into those IPs. You know, funnily enough, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro were almost those sort of iconic platform IPs for Sony, and now they're owned by Microsoft. It's funny how things turn around. But what I want to jump on actually is a comment Nav you made earlier around the shape of gaming in the future, and you know, in 10 years time, 20 years time, what will gaming look like? I'm interested to hear how do you think that Sony are going to respond, and is this the is this the generation that Microsoft are going to start really eating into Sony's market share?
It's an interesting one. I think, like, a lot of people have when they saw this thing, they kind of said, look at how many studios Microsoft owns now, and so I thought I'd do a little count. So Microsoft own now 28 studios, including the Activision stuff. So all the small studios all the big studios that Activision. So in total, they own 28. Sony, before the acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft, Sony has 23 first-party studios that they own. So, it's still pretty much like for like. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference unless they start doing this whole, going down the route of like exclusivity and denying Sony fans their games. So no,
with those Sony properties, they're Sony's content is typically first-person narrative-focused action games. Whilst you look at some of the Microsoft properties, Halo's gone free to play, Warzone free to play. There a lot of focus on multiplayer experience with a lot of scope to get DLC and additional revenue. While Sony don't really have that in their portfolio. So how do you think this is going to really shape Sony's strategy? And do you think they are gonna do something? Are they going to react? Twitter and internet were abound by rumors that Sony need to go by Capcom, Sony need to go by Square. What are they going to do, or are they just going to continue as normal? Their strategy so far has been working.
Well, what acquisition outside of Nintendo could be as big as what Microsoft had just pulled off? Other than just buying up smaller studios like Sony have been doing, and been doing a great job with, I think you raise a good point, Adrian, that although this acquisition is huge, on one hand, I feel like the PlayStation name is more relevant in the mind, of your average gamer than Microsoft Xbox is. I think your average gamer kind of leans more on Sony to develop, better consoles. I don't know why that is. I don't know when the shift was, but that's what I can make out. But I also think they make more movie-like experiences, more narrative-driven games, like Adrian's point. And I feel like even with this massive acquisition from Microsoft, in 3 years' time, we're going to see two completely different beasts of consoles. And Sony might not have that massive acquisition in their favor, but they've got Sucker Punch, they've got Insomniac, they've got Naughty Dog, they've got teams that are making games that, frankly, you don't see on Microsoft, on Xbox, even though it's a big purchase, and I'm sure lots of great games are going to come from it. Is Starfield going to be as good as the next Naughty Dog game? Who knows? I just feel like Sony are catering their games towards a very specific type of person, someone who does like narrative-based experiences. And they've got a lot of other games, indie titles, and 2D adventure games and RPGs. But I feel like the Xbox is more driven towards a PC crowd, and we know what Sony do, and we know what they're going to continue to deliver with the next Spider-Man game that comes out, with Wolverine, with the next Uncharted, The Last of Us factions. I feel like they are two different beasts, and no matter what the next acquisition by Microsoft is or Sony, I feel like things are going to kind of still keep on quite a steady trajectory for both systems. I know it's on paper it's big. They've got Activision. The world goes mad, but it just looks good on paper. What games have come from Activision that are blowing your minds? What's coming out of Blizzard?
It's not that, but I mean, do you think the Sony execs woke up and were quaking in their boots after that purchase?
Yes.
It's not about the games and the quality of the content. It's around the sales and the revenue that it brings to Sony's storefront.
Of course.
I think from a revenue perspective, you can't argue that Sony aren't going to be at least a little bit worried. But from I don't know. You said like what Blizzard or Activision games would you be excited about? Like the back catalog. Like the back catalog for Blizzard is absolutely amazing. I mean, they've had quite a lot of misses recently. They've had Overwatch 2 being delayed for over almost 2 years now, I believe. But
Yeah, something like that.
yeah, but you can't argue that Blizzard is an absolutely fantastic studio. King, which quite a few people have kind of mentioned in the news now. King is huge in the mobile space. You know, Candy Crush Saga is the only game my wife plays, and most gamers you'd argue on mobile, like Candy Crush is the game that they play.
Yeah, I agree. I know, and Hearthstone, and also you got Diablo 4 on the way.
You got Diablo 4. There's a lot on the way. There's a lot of heritage that Blizzard have. So you know, there's a lot of stuff that Activision don't have from an IP perspective. But like Blizzard, World of Warcraft still brings in 12 million subscribers. Probably dropped off a little bit now, but it's still at its height was around 12 million subscribers playing World of Warcraft every month. That's an insane number of people playing online, playing their games. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one.
I just feel like the optics haven't changed. I think your average person, despite this, massive purchase, they still look at Sony as the go-to console, and I think it's going to remain that way until your average person sees a vast amount of different IP heading their way to Xbox, and maybe if COD does end up exclusive, that's what's going to make your typical PlayStation owner go, oh wait, okay, this is ridiculous, I want to play Call of Duty, okay, let's buy an Xbox. But until then, I don't really see too much change.
In France, a retailer have been setting up signs saying Microsoft have bought Activision. If you want to play COD, be careful about buying the PlayStation. So it's already impacting the gaming landscape.
Well, I mean, I think that's
in France.
That's hyperbole.
That's
also never trust the French. You know this, Adrian. Come on.
No comment.
But this is the point, right? So PS4, there's 100 and something million units out there. Last of Us 2 sold, I think only about under 10. I think it was closer to 5 or 6. Ghost of Tsushima was 8 million. This is a fraction of their player base of what's out in the wild of consoles. So they're the big titles, and what we know is name recognition. All the stuff like COD and FIFA is what sells those consoles, really. So losing COD is a massive thing. Yeah, we're not going to see that for 3 years, and that's the thing. So I think the shift, if they do go exclusive, is going to happen in 3 years' time, and that's where we're going to see the biggest impact. Now, what do Sony do? They don't have a first-person shooter for their console besides multi-platform ones. So they're going to have to go out there and either tell their current studio to make an FPS or find one that's being built and buy out the studio that is doing one.
But do you think they're going to go down a free-to-play route, a more sort of multiplayer-focused game?
I think they're going to have to with a something like that to kind of
see Sanj, I think some of those numbers, I'm looking at some of the numbers as well, just on Wikipedia about like the numbers of sales that these games have made. And I genuinely think this is massively underselling how many people buy these games. I don't think those numbers are accurate, in my opinion, because I honestly cannot believe that The Last of Us Remastered, the original, sold more than The Last of Us 2. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. That's insane. That's insane.
Why wouldn't it? It was sold on 2 consoles.
No, Last of Us Remastered was only a PS4 game. It wasn't a PS5 game.
No. Oh well, okay. You're talking about remastered only.
Just remastered, yeah, not the original and the remastered together. Like Last of Us Remastered supposedly sold.
But that was critically more successful than the second one.
Oh, well.
Last of Us Remastered, wasn't that bundled as part of
console as well?
Anyway, I mean the point is, I think like they always talk about attach rates with consoles, right? So like at least Nintendo do. Nintendo used to tout the attach rate for their consoles, which is when you buy a Nintendo console, when like the Nintendo Wii, like specifically had like an attach rate of like 3, which meant for every console you sold, you normally owned 3 games. The average person would own about 3 games along with that console. If you're saying there's 100 million consoles and 10% of all the consoles you've sold own The Last of Us, that's a success. That's a significant amount of people.
I didn't say it wasn't a success. I just said we just see it as the success, but that's not the thing that drives those console sales. Really, it's the multi-platform games like COD, like FIFA. Those are the ones that the average gamer that we are not. I was definitely one of those because I think I had a PS4 for years, and the only game I bought was FIFA, or I was buying and the only game I was playing was FIFA. I'm not an FPS guy, so yeah, I can see the opposite as well with someone just buying it for COD. I'm sure there's definitely a few people I know who bought it just for COD back in the day. So, like I said, we're not going to see this in the short term. We're going to see this, and that probably brings us on to whether they're going to actually do a Game Pass competitor. I mean, there was rumors of them calling it. Is it? I've forgotten what it's called now. Was it Pegasus or something?
Was it Spartacus?
Yeah,
Spartacus. That's the one. What was there? Spartacus. So, and what? So, Adrian, what do you think that's going to be? If what do you think that could be as a competitor?
Well, no doubt about it, they are doing something, and there's rumours that it could launch as early as February, March. I think it's going to be not quite a 1-for-1 copy of Game Pass, because I just can't see Sony putting their premier IPs on their day one like Microsoft has committed to doing. But I think it would just be a tiered subscription model where the basic tier will be like a PS Plus, PS Now, whatever the service are called, and then the highest tier you get backward compatibility games, so your PS2, PS3 games. But I can't see Sony putting their big IPs on their day one, because it's just from a revenue standpoint, it will just eat into their revenue.
Yeah, and that's why.
To such a degree.
Yeah, and that's why I think I read about Project Spartacus plan, and when I read that Sony's president have said himself, at the end of the day, they're never going to do like day one kind of like a system where they put their day one games, like The Last of Us, their premier games, Last of Us, and Hide. They're not going to put them on that system because if they can charge $70 or £60 for a game, why would they give it away for free as part of a subscription? And that's why it's going to fail. Fail is obviously like it's very it depends on who you ask as to whether it's a success or a failure. But I don't care about having PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. I don't want a PlayStation Now stuff. I already have PlayStation Plus, and PlayStation Plus to me isn't a good deal. They've already given me, when I bought a PS5, they gave me like a bunch of the best hits on PlayStation 4 for free as part of PlayStation Plus. So I have most of the good games. Like, what are they offering me with this? Like, I don't understand where they're coming from.
Well, it's going to be third-party content in a similar vein to Game Pass. So they will strike up licensing deals with various publishers and put their game on Spartacus or whatever the service is going to be called.
We'll see how that goes. But at the end of the day, it seems like I don't know about you guys. I mean, like like I said, I'm subscribed to this PlayStation Plus. Every month they used to give out free games, and back in when they introduced that, and on the PS3, you used to get really, really good quality titles. And these days, in fact, bringing in a viewer comment, someone's just said PS Plus games that came out a while ago were good games, but games that generally you've already purchased. Like these days, especially like the stuff coming out on the PS Plus just isn't worth the salt. It isn't worth the. I mean, fine, it's not extortion, it's not money. It's what £50, $60 a year. It's just not worth the money. So I don't know how they're going to justify.
I think at retail, it's not. But I think you most of the time you can pick it up for 40, and that's what £3.30 a year. I mean, a month.
But still,
that's nothing.
But where's the value? Like,
I think they're not really basing that at us. Really, that's the the person who's going to buy it because they're going to play it online, and they're going to get all the extra stuff, and they're just going to play FIFA or something else, or they've got younger kids, and they'll get that, and then they'll get free games, and that's that 100 million consoles out there.
But then, do you think they're going to charge £40, $50 for that? Do you think that's realistically going to happen? That isn't going to happen. They're going to up the
No, no.
price. You know,
Yeah,
like,
no, I think there's going to be a tiered system, to be honest. I think there'll be a tiered system. I think it'll be kind of what they've got now, and there'll be like a silver and like a gold or platinum or whatever they call it.
right.
And it will be like PS2 and 3 games on tier 2 or something like that. And then like some, and you get to the top tier and you'll get some exclusives maybe.
So
I think it's going to be a watered down Game Pass, but I think that's all they need to do. I don't think they need to go crazy.
So then let me ask the question. I'll start with you, Ant. How much would you pay for a subscription service on your PlayStation to play old games?
Okay, well, since Game Pass is out there, it's really going to be the thought in mind is going to be how can I justify spending money on this service on PlayStation when I can spend this much more or less on whatever's on Xbox with Game Pass. I feel like, well, to answer your question, I don't know. It all depends on the service itself. I wouldn't pay any amount of money to play old games, to be honest with you. I think if Sony are going to put themselves out there and compete with Spartacus, they have to at least have day one games. Otherwise, it's pointless for me. What's the benefit of competing with Game Pass if it's not at least a Game Pass replica? Game Pass being something that's already well established, people love it, it's proven to work. If Sony come out with something lesser, isn't this just going to be PlayStation Plus?
Which is why. Sorry, just to interject. Which is why I think Nintendo always do what Nintendo does. Like they do a completely different thing to everybody else, right? But when they decided to release their online offering, it was $20. It was super cheap, and they added all those SNES and NES games for free as part of their $20. So they knew they couldn't get away with charging ridiculous sums of money for old games, right?
Yep.
So.
But then they had a second tier with the ones that were more.
They added that much later, yeah. But they've added a second tier, which again, it isn't an extortion sum of money. It still isn't like up to. It isn't even $40. I think it's only like another 10 or $15 on top of the base tier to get the N60 like newer titled games.
Are you sure? I think it's.
It's expensive to be honest with you now.
For what you get, like the Nintendo offering, the premium one, for what you get, yes, it's expensive. But it's still not. You're still not charging like Game Pass is. It's £180, about $200 proposition per year. That's a significant sum of money. You know, that's 3 premium games, but you're getting a lot for that. I can't see, unless Sony's giving me day one games, like you say, unless they're giving me like brand new games day one, I don't see the value in paying anywhere near that kind of money.
They could strike up deals with third-party studios and do third-party day ones, like Microsoft done that with Outriders and a few other games.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, for me, Game Pass has just set the bar too high, and I'm not adverse to subscribing to another service. I think we're all, consumers. We're happy to subscribe to services. Netflix, Spotify, everyone's got them, but it's just like the value proposition of Game Pass is just too immense. And with obviously the acquisitions that Microsoft have made, not just Bethesda and Activision, but the legacy ones such as Ninja Theory, they're all going to be releasing content over the coming years. I just don't think Sony can respond like that, especially without committing to putting their day ones day dot.
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
But I mean, it certainly is interesting that they felt the need to respond, and Spencer, and there's a lot of talk of is Game Pass profitable, and I wonder how is this just going to be a loss leader for Sony because they're worried about losing the mind share and the optics and perception of the value that Game Pass brings. Be interesting to see how this plays out.
You make a good point there because a lot of it is optics. Like, so many people are going to buy into Xbox just because, Game Pass, I've heard it's amazing. You get day one games, this, that, and the other. So all Sony need is, we've got that as well. We've got our version.
To an extent, optics is important, but looking at it from another perspective, at the end of the day, if Sony releases Last of Us 3 tomorrow, are the majority of people going to go out and buy it? Yes. Is Sony going to get people paying full price for a game and sell 10 million copies? Yes. So then, do they even need to respond? No. Until it starts affecting the sales of their first party titles, they don't need to do anything. I think that they can probably get away with just putting up with people complaining about it and not having a system. And I'd rather them think about it and take their time, and if they are going to do something, do it right, than do a quick haphazard response, which the Spartacus thing seems to be kind of like a haphazard, quickly rushed together response to something that Microsoft has clearly spent years building into this service.
But it kind of goes back to what we were saying about the Activision Blizzard acquisition. It's like, I don't want Sony as a knee-jerk reaction to go out and splurge on something, because they've got quite a cohesive platform at the moment. I think they're being really smart in their purchases. They've got some good studios, and I think the studios that they are buying up, like your Sucker Punches and your Insomniacs, they really feel at home on that platform, and it almost doesn't make sense for Sony to make an acquisition as big as what Microsoft had just done. I think you're right, Nav. I feel like they do have the heavy hitters, and they could easily release any one of those tomorrow and kind of regain some kind of groundswell.
Horizon's coming out in a week. Like, they don't need to offer day one for that. Like, day one free. Just people are going to go out and buy it.
I forgot about that game. Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll talk about upcoming releases in due course, but let's move on to everyone's favorite topic, NFTs. So NFTs is the new hype at the moment. So everyone in gaming circles, from the legacy hype machine, Peter Molyneux, to Atari, Sega, have registered future use of an NFT. EA are talking about NFTs being the future for gaming. And of course, Ubisoft have got their own NFT, which I believe is called Digits. So it's, again, I'm really keen to see what everyone thinks of this, because materially, so far, it seems like gamers are all against it, but publishers, are really getting behind blockchain technology and really want to start pushing it to the game. So what are your thoughts? Now we're going to jump straight to you on this.
Oh, well, why are you jumping to me? I think here's my biggest problem with NFTs. I think NFTs on paper sound like a fantastic idea. The problem I have is, I think the way they're gonna actually end up, what's actually gonna end up happening is you're gonna end up with every single publisher or every single studio designing their own separate system to deal with these NFTs, like Quartz or Digits or whatever Ubisoft have created these days. That's their thing. That's gonna be fine with Ubisoft games, but they say they released like a couple of things for Breakpoint. Ghost Recon, and and it has value. The whole point of the NFT is it has value. You've earned something. Technically, it's pay to earn. You've played a game and you've earned something, and it's got an inherent value to it. Fantastic. You now have to rely on Ubisoft maintaining that game for a significant period of time, right? For that to retain the value. Because if Ubisoft then turn around in a year and say, we're shutting down the servers and you can no longer play this game, which a lot of publishers and a lot of studios have clear history in doing that, then
Ubisoft have just cancelled their Battle Royale game.
Exactly. Hyperscape, which I mean, at the end of the day, you shut this stuff down and there's your value gone. Like, who's going to want something that's like you can't even play the game anymore? So it's an interesting one. If publishers can come together and actually design a singular system where it's a true marketplace, so whether or not you own the game, I can trade you something and you can hold on to it and then you can sell it on later to somebody else, and they kind of maintain these games as a service. That's where I think the value will come from. I also think I read a very interesting article the other day about how this could effectively be kind of the second-hand, the used game market for digital. This could become that. So how you go to a GameStop or a game store in the UK, pick up a game, that physical disc copy is your game, and you can sell that on, and it's still worth something. NFTs could become that for video games. instead of when you buy a digital game right now, it's assigned to your account and it's yours. But if that was sold to you as an NFT game, then effectively you could then, in 6 months' time when you finish the game, you could trade that in, sell that on, because it's intrinsically linked and it's worth a value. I think.
Don't you think it is just a vehicle for speculation and investors
Oh
to
right.
get
Oh right
a
now,
lot
definitely. Yeah.
richer, rather than for me, when a new product or a new technology or something comes to market, it needs to be answering a question. It needs to be giving me some kind of value or solving a problem. But I just can't see the value that NFTs bring. It just feels like it's a means to exploit the consumers, just like microtransactions were a few years ago.
Well, I just gave you a problem there itself. Like I said, the ability to resell a digital game. You've bought a game physically, like as a digital copy. Right now, there's no way for you to trade that in, no way for you to sell that game. NFTs will give you that ability.
But would you feel happy if Microsoft, Sony, or whoever got a cut of that secondhand sale?
Well, when you sell it to Game do, yeah, they don't give you the full price for it. They sell it on, take a cut. So how is that different?
The thing is, NFTs, it's all based around artificial scarcity, isn't it? I mean, you buy some kind of item in game, a gun skin or whatever, and it's it's a legendary item and it goes up in value.
I agree with you there. In that perspective, I don't think it would work. But in the perspective of digital game ownership, I think it'd be a fantastic idea. So it doesn't go up in value. It's not scarce. It's literally just you paid $40 for a game, a digital copy of a game, and you want to trade it in or you want to sell it. And someone like Microsoft will take it back off your hands and sell it on to another consumer for a percentage less than you bought it for, because it's gone down in value. It's not something that you should speculate in. It should just purely be like a transactional process.
But what impetus does Microsoft or anyone have in purchasing?
Because right now, if you bought a Blu-ray or a DVD copy of a video game from a store, Microsoft or Sony or whoever, or the publisher or the developer see no money from secondhand sales. This way, through NFTs, they can. So it's actually a fantastic solution for them to deal with the secondhand market, which they've been struggling with for many, many years. That secondhand markets eat into sales and remove profit from developers. Profit that could technically be reinvested back into their studio, back into their next game. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear the opinion of Anthony Assange.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, in that scenario, I'm not really opposed to that scenario, what you're putting forward. But that's not really what I've heard. It's all basically a con of another form of microtransaction. That's what these NFTs are. It's just a blatant money-making scheme. And like you said, they're going to be useless. They're going to become, when the server shuts down, that becomes useless within that marketplace. Or maybe they'll transfer it over to a different game. If we've got a collection of games, like Ubisoft have a collection of Assassin's Creed games, so you can go to different Assassin's Creed games and use those NFTs. But no, it's just a money making scheme. NFTs are that at the moment. I think in most forms, no matter whether it's in games or not, they have maybe a value within the digital art market, like with known artists, where they're able to get commissions off sales of their art once it's they've sold it and it gets resold. So I do see kind of the value of what it could be, but not in games. Games is not where it should be. There should be no NFTs in games at all.
But you agree with my secondhand video game.
It's an interesting point, but I think they will then control the secondhand market, and it would maybe be bad for consumers, like the secondhand market, because then they'll be able to control that price, which is not going to be good for the secondhand market.
But who controls the price now in the secondhand market?
Well, it's a free market, because you'll be on eBay, you'll be buying it for that person sells for.
So I was thinking purely from a game or a GameStop perspective. Like they control it, but you're right. Like eBay, you control it yourself, right? Because you can sell it to a mate for whatever you want.
Yeah, I've got a job lot of games from years down the line, like secondhand games, stuff like I wouldn't have gotten. I got it for a great deal. That would not happen in this scenario. I would have to pay whatever the company is dictating that price to me.
Actually, do you like? Because at the end of the day, like the whole point of NFTs, like once you've bought it, it's yours. It's physically like it's your property. You can then sell it no matter like to whoever you want. Like it's not actually like you don't actually have to go through like Microsoft if you bought a Microsoft digital item. Like you then have control. Fine, you have to use like their currency, like whatever coin they've created to do it. But that's just that's just
It depends on what the marketplace, what the platform is that they're still trading it through.
I think I definitely think there's a Shangri-La, like a perfect vision I have in my head of Eden where all this stuff works like amazingly well. But I guess that's the IT guy in me.
What's going to happen is, I think what Ubisoft and EA want to happen is there'll be NFTs in their games. They'll go for silly money and they will get a percentage of sales, and it's just a way of them getting extra revenue. It's a very basic way for them to be driving profits. When you got investors shouting from the rooftops about how great something is, and generally the consumer feedback is one of resistance, it's probably going to go bad. And I think if NFTs go into a game which is based on collectibles like Pokemon, it's just going to be really, really bad. But interestingly enough, we've had a viewer comment who is very much for NFTs. Be interested to see why that is. But yeah, it's a topic we may have to revisit. I'm not sure, Ant, you want to touch on it at all?
Not really. Yeah, I won't lie. It's not really a field. It's not really my field of expertise. It's not really in my ballpark of knowledge. But I don't. Why can't games just be games? I don't really tend to concern myself with things that don't really benefit the player or better the user's experience. So to me, this is just business rearing its ugly head into the gameplay experience, and I don't really like that. I don't really want to see it. Maybe I'm a bit of an old timer in that way. I just like things to remain as they are, and I would like this kind of talk to be left in the offices of gaming corporations rather than be center stage and be on the minds of gamers. I would rather talk about cool games that are coming out and ideas of improving gameplay and things of that nature. To me, this is something I don't know a whole lot about, and I can't really speak too much upon it. I think what Nav said is quite interesting about the second-hand market, about how it might affect that. But other than that, and apart from Nav's interesting brief on what NFTs are last week, he was kind enough to give me a little rundown of NFTs in terms of imagery, which was cool. But I don't know a whole lot on the subject, and I'll just leave it at that, to be honest with you.
Let's move on to what games we're looking forward to this year. So there are some big blockbuster titles and a lot of smaller titles coming out. Just next month we've got Horizon Forbidden West, Elden Ring. Later in the year we'll have Starfield and Gotham Knights and God of War Ragnarok. So but for me, I'm going to say I'm really looking forward to Sifu. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think, Anthony, we spoke about this maybe 25 years ago about designing a martial arts beat 'em up with a lot of depth.
It sounds like a good bullshit story, doesn't it? But we actually did. We thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a martial arts game where you actually had to block at the right time and counter at the right time, and actually had some kind of Jackie Chan-esque, fighting scenarios where you could use the things around you in combat, like chairs and tables and what have you. Yeah, it was a discussion. We didn't draw up any blueprints.
We should have purchased the IP. We should have done something crazy so no one else
throw in a trademark or something, huh?
That's what I was looking for.
I'm supporting Jovi in the chat here. Like Elden Ring for me, I think is the big one that's coming out fairly soon. Also, along with Dying Light 2 is coming out next week. I've already put my pre-order in for that, so I'm super excited about that. That's coming next week. So yeah, I think this year definitely, like just in general, I think it's going to be a fantastic year for games compared to last year, especially when last year I think there was a big drought in good games. I think there was some good titles, but this year definitely feels like the year of games.
For me, it's Atomic Heart, which is it's a game that we don't really know too much about. It's been quite obscure, really, of detail, but everything they've shown has been looking amazing. And also Stalker 2, I believe is coming out this year. So I'm looking forward to those two games. I know I'm going for 3 games here, but although Nintendo have let me down time after time after time, Breath of the Wild 2 is still something I'm very intrigued about. You know, they might not be at the top of my list anymore as a company, but I'm always eager to see what Nintendo pull out of their hat. So yeah, if it does come out this year, Breath of the Wild 2 is a big one.
Sanj, over to you.
Yeah, so just like you, I'm interested for Sifu, which is out in 2 weeks. And then the week following week it's Horizon, but also King of the Fighters 15, which I'm actually looking forward to. What I've seen so far looks kind of cool, and I haven't played a proper King of the Fighters for a long time. So yeah, that's on my radar.
Interesting choice. I think we're gonna have to. That's gonna make it way around the gaming rotation on a Friday night.
I'll tell you what's interesting is apart from Anthony, there none of us picked a game that's really like coming out on a single platform. No console exclusives for us.
I think Sifu is exclusive actually.
It's out on PC, my friend.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Console
Yeah,
exclusive.
it is.
I'm
It's a console
I'm, I'm talking about console exclusives. But I mean, one thing I did want to talk about is God of War. So no, I think we spoke about it in a previous pod where the visual leap didn't seem to be that great. I just want to check on hype levels and if you think that the new God of War is being held back by being designed on the original PS4.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? Because I never would describe myself as a graphics whore or anything of that nature. I'm very much into gameplay.
You're very much just a normal whore.
Yeah, definitely a big whore. But look, if I'm to be truthful with myself, yeah, I am let down by the fact it looks like a PS4 game. You know, why wouldn't I be? I was expecting Sony's Santa Monica Studios, they always raise the bar of graphics. Whether it was the first God of War on PS2, the second God of War on PS2, God of War 3 on PS3, they always kind of set the bar, as did God of War on PS4. But this, I was looking for this game to show off what PS5 can do. And that trailer just looked like a bit of DLC for the previous God of War to me personally. I have no doubt it's going to be an incredible game. I'm definitely going to play it. But just currently, it seems like a game that I'm going to be more hyped about upon playing it rather than before playing it, because everything it's showing me so far just doesn't look like too much of a leap, which then raises the question: does it need to be a leap? Was it already perfected as it was? You know.
I mean, Horizon Forbidden West looks very much better than the original Horizon.
Does it?
Yeah,
It's funny. I was going to bring that up. I actually don't think it looks too much
No,
better.
I think it looks the same. Yeah, to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I like again the chat's kind of kicking off about God of War saying like it looked amazing back then, and I kind of agree with Anthony. Does it need a big jump? Like, is that really required? I do agree with you and think that I think games are being held back by especially PlayStation games are being held back by the fact that they're always trying to like cater to the lowest common denominator. You know, at the end of the day, you're kind of building these games for a PlayStation 4 and then kind of like upscaling with slightly better like resolution on a PlayStation 5. It doesn't really feel like I can't actually recall. Is there any like actual PlayStation 5 exclusives like that are like first party that are only coming to PlayStation 5? Because I don't think there is there?
Ratchet is out, and
that to me was unimpressive.
The remake of Bloodborne, was it Bloodborne or Demon Souls? I mean,
the Demon Souls remake was that was a flat PS5 and that did look beautiful. But could that have been done on a PS4?
Ratchet was unimpressive. What, graphically or the game as a whole?
I think the game was good. I just think from a system, like I get the seamless transition, like when you're jumping between those portals, was cool, and definitely, they say the power of the SSD. Yes, load times. The fact that there was no load times was great, but from a graphics perspective, it could have been done on a PS4. I think they would have had to add. They would have had to add breaks and like load times, but that's the only thing that would have suffered. Like it wasn't from a graphical, just purely from an eye candy perspective.
I've got to disagree because I've not played it and I've only seen it on YouTube, which is a lower quality than actually playing it. And I can see how it looks so much better than anything on PS4. I know it's a cartoony aesthetic, but to me, I can't see. I couldn't see the PS4 doing that. I thought the previous Ratchet was pretty much what PS4 could do in terms of creating a cartoony game that looked like a DreamWorks movie or something along the lines of what Pixar would come out with. But yeah, I see the leap there. It's actually one of the few games where I actually do see quite a big leap.
I see. I think, and again, I'm gonna have to agree with people in chat. Joey seems to be talking a lot of sense in chat at the moment. Like Spiderman is a good example of a game, the remastered Spiderman, where they added 60 frames a second with like PS4 graphics, or you could switch to real-time lighting to have much better lighting, high resolution, but stick to 30 frames. And I would always go to 60 frames. So I'd much prefer like better frame rates and slightly lower graphics. So maybe that just isn't. I'd prefer them pushing that kind of stuff. I think, I don't know, like.
I agree. Frame rate is definitely more important to me. So if God of War comes out and it's locked 60 and it's 4K, that should be enough. To be honest with you.
Exactly. Ange?
Yeah, I disagree with you, but and I've only watched the videos on YouTube, so I can't really say whether Ratchet looked like it could be handled by a PS4 graphically. I don't know. I mean, I've got to play the remaster of Spider-Man and like all bits of it, and yeah, it looks amazing. Obviously, Miles Morales. Yeah, the difference is huge for me, and obviously they got the 60 frames as well. So I don't know. I mean, it's a hard one, I think, but yeah, I freaking just disagree with you there fully.
Fair enough.
Well, I think that really sums up the gaming portion of the pod. So I think we're going to transition now over to the films and movie side. Thanks for everyone in the chat joining us. So I'm going to hand over to Sanj now.
Cheers, H. Right, so we're going to talk about some movies that we've seen over the last month or so. We've kind of had a little time off this during the Christmas break. So we're going to talk about a few different movies like The Matrix Resurrections, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Spider-Man No Way Home, and just before that, we're going to start off with the Moonknight trailer. Though, did everyone get a chance to check out the Moonknight trailer?
Yep.
Yeah, and do you know what? Honestly, I wasn't excited for Moonknight. I thought Moonknight was gonna. It looked pretty shit, to be honest. But I watched this trailer, and now I'm actually I've kind of got a bit of a hype for it going. It looks to be very different, very interesting, quite dark. I'm a big fan of the trailer. I'm a big fan of. I've forgotten his name. What's his name? Oscar Isaac. I'm a big fan of him. The only thing I didn't like him in was basically all the Star Wars films and X-Men Apocalypse. Those are the only things I think he's done that are bad. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. How about you, Ant?
Yeah, I don't know. It was quite an odd one for me. Firstly, I'm sure Moon Knight is a well-established Marvel comic series, right? So people have read the comic and they probably watched this trailer and understood it better than I did. It was quite confusing for me to watch. I didn't quite know what was going on. There seems to be this ongoing theme, or even like a slogan of embrace the chaos, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I mean, I'm grasping at straws because again, it was hard for me to see what was going on, but it kind of seems like he's an ordinary, everyday character who's been thrust into this world of chaos, and rather than being fearful of it, he has to kind of embrace it in order to kind of be this superhero. I might be way off there, but I feel like I'd be more interested in this if it didn't say Marvel at the beginning. And I know that sounds terrible, but it kind of leads me to compare it to every other superhero film that's out there. And I kind of feel like I know the beats. Again, like with what was the other one? What was the previous one? The martial arts one that came out.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi. I feel like I know the beats. I feel like I know where it's going to go. I feel like, Act 1, awkward character, establish that character. Act 2, establish a threat. Act 3, he gets a power. He has to kind of figure out how to use it. Act 4, they clash. Act 5, he learns something about himself. I kind of see the trajectory. I know where this film is going to head in. But if I didn't see that Marvel emblem at the beginning, I think, oh, this looks like a original movie. I'll be interested to check out what this is. This might be a niche little film about a character who's, been thrust into this weird world of chaos. Who knows? But yeah, again, you know where I stand with these films. I'm not too excited about it.
You've got anti-Marvel bias, basically. So if it didn't have Marvel on it, you would be more intrigued.
It's not that I just hate Marvel, and I'm going to say some complimentary things about Spider-Man, in a bit, but it's just that you learn from mistakes in life, right? Not to call watching Marvel films a mistake, but it's kind of like that. Like you put your hand in the fire and you get burnt, and then you don't do it again because you've learned something. And I've seen so many Marvel films where I've either just been, straight up bored or just indifferent, that it's kind of made me wary. But that is just wariness. That's not me, saying, putting my flag in the ground and saying, right, I'm never going to watch another Marvel film as long as I live. I'm still very open to whatever they dish out.
See,
But I'm just looking for them to do something different, say something different, follow a different path, And I think, and Marvel fans might, say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and they might be right. But I also think they would benefit from the format taking a bit of a change.
I agree. They need to change the format up. I mean, everything in the new films, all of the new films, to me, have had big problems, apart from one, and we're going to come on to that. But yeah, I do think the format needs to change up.
I'm going to jump in quickly. It's a TV show for one, not a movie.
Sorry,
but they I'm going to defend Anthony here. They treat their TV properties the same as they treat their movie properties.
True, but that was just an observation. So I don't think the act structure goes the same way though, so much. Also, I don't have a massive knowledge of Moonknight, but I know a little bit, and the character has multiple personalities.
So he's like Legion then, like Discount Legion.
Maybe, I don't know. I was trying to think. I had something in my head that I was thinking of, but I was thinking more of Split. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good, great, great film. Yeah,
it was a really good movie, and then obviously he comes up with the crazy powers and whatnot at the end. But yeah, I think it's closer to that and that kind of ilk of the horror elements stuff. One thing I believe it's based in LA, which is, I don't think, because they had shots of London, so I'm guessing he's based in London in the actual TV show, which also is a different scene that we really haven't seen in any of the Marvel stuff. It's always normally based in America mostly, besides Wakanda, and yeah, so it'd be interesting to see a different scene within a setting of Marvel.
I thought it was based in the UK, wasn't it? Because like he's obviously got an English accent.
Yeah, no, but in the comics, I meant in the comics,
right.
It's based in LA, so he was an LA-based crime fighter.
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
I'm going to jump in and force my opinion down everyone's throat because I've not been asked for it. For me, I mean, I echo Anthony's thoughts, to be perfectly honest. I think they just need to give us something different. Like, I think I'm feeling a bit of Marvel fatigue. I generally like their films, but I think they're quite generic. And this being a TV series, I think they could do a lot more in terms of exposition and characterization, stuff like that. But yeah, unless they're going to do something different, and it looks like they may do in terms of leaning on the horror aspects, and the tone may be a bit darker. But even despite the more sort of gothic and change in lighting, I think it's just going to follow that same formulaic Marvel milestones, comedy elements, and stuff like that. I'll tap into it eventually. Hopefully, you guys can review it and then recommend it to me, and I'll see what it's like. But I think, yeah, certainly, I think I'm a bit fatigued from Marvel properties at the moment.
Okay, then. So we'll move on from a Marvel property and go on to a Warner property.
Oh no, I think we should stick with the Marvel properties.
Really, you want to go with the fatigue?
Yeah,
of Marvel
let's talk about something from Marvel that was actually good.
All right, fine. All right, we're going to go with Spider-Man: No Way Home. Who would like to take the lead on their thoughts of Spider-Man: No Way Home?
And
Well, who's the bigger Spider-Man fan here?
the biggest Spider-Man fan is Sanj.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't want to hear it. I want to hear your opinion, Anthony, because you hate everything.
Do I really? Okay.
No, not really. But
I thought No Way Home was a perfectly decent film. It was fun. It was a fun movie, to be honest with you. I didn't, and I still don't get the hype. Like, I don't get why people are clapping and applauding and screaming and crying. I don't get all that. That's lost on me. And also, I feel like it did something kind of similar to what Ghostbusters Afterlife did, where I feel like audiences were hoping to see this reunion of old characters reprise their old roles. And I feel like No Way Home did a much better job than Ghostbusters did in bringing back old characters. I liked the interaction and dialogue between characters more than the action. I felt like every time there were characters conversing on screen, especially when the old cast came back, that's when it shined for me. And again, I get quite bored during these extended action scenes. I kind of lose the thread when that happens. But I feel like for a film that incorporated the multiverse theory, I think it managed to juggle that and still have good pacing and a consistent story. It wasn't too confusing. It threw a lot of elements in there, but it was never like, oh, this is one character too many for me. It was funny. I wasn't sure about killing off. Are we in spoiler territory? Yeah.
We're spoiler, yeah.
Warning to everyone, full spoilers.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about killing off his aunt. I understand that there's this trope in Spider-Man where everyone's lost someone and he has yet to lose someone. So there's that kind of interaction between him and the older Spider-Man, just so they're all on the same page. They've all lost, and they all kind of.
Technically, he lost. Sorry to jump in. He lost Tony Stark, didn't he? So this is.
Oh yeah, okay. That's a fair point.
Which to be honest, I actually thought. So I was going to say the same point. I actually thought that was his loss. Like Tony Stark was his Uncle Ben, effectively, in the movie. But so it was quite.
We're discounting that he's actually lost Uncle Ben as well. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, yeah, it's kind of it's interesting that like Tony Stark was thinking, and that's why it kind of did come as a big surprise to me as well that they kind of they sacrificed her as a character because she was a fantastic and a beloved character. I think everybody who watched the previous films commented on how well acted she was and how well her updated character was compared to the previous renditions of an aunt.
Yeah, well, I thought the film also did a great job of kind of mixing the everyday mundane with these these elements of superheroes. So like the scene where Andrew Garfield comes out of the portal and the aunt's there and she's telling him to get a cobweb off the ceiling while he's up there. And I thought that was fun and it was clever. And when they realise that Tobey Maguire is actually shooting the web out of his wrist rather than having some crazy contraption, I liked that. I thought those interactions were clever, and that was the most fun thing about the film for me. So, just to end, I could do without the spectacle, but there's a good film underneath all that for me. And that's not a complaint, because I know what I'm getting into when watching, a Spider-Man film. I know there's going to be big action scenes and fights and what have you. But it was fun. It was a solid 8 out of 10 movie for me. So
I'm impressed with that score, and that's high recommendation coming from Ant. For me, I'm just going to jump in. I didn't enjoy it as much as the previous ones, to be honest, and I will say that I've got a habit of underrating sequels, and I need to rewatch them before I could form a good opinion of them. So I mean, I've done that with Raid 2, lots of other films, but for this, even though some of the comedy was alright, it just didn't hit home as much for me. I think it relied on nostalgia, the nostalgia, tugging the nostalgia ropes, and probably my own fault. I didn't delve back into the previous Spider-Man films, and as a standalone film, for me, it just didn't capture the sense of fun of the previous Spider-Man films. Again, and the action scenes, they just didn't blow my mind. The sense of spectacle wasn't as good as the previous ones. So I think I'm probably an outlier here, and I certainly thought it was serviceable, but pales in comparison to the previous Tom Holland Spider-Man films. And Sand, I'm sure he's raging and itching to jump in.
I am, but I want to head now first because I'm gonna go last.
Okay, fine. So I gave it and I don't like to do 10-point scales. I do 5-point scales, but effectively a 4 out of 5, which would be an 8 out of 10 for me. But like I did see problems with it. Like, so I'm going to talk about the problems that I had with it rather than just gushing about how I enjoyed it, because Anthony, you said it quite succinctly. It did a lot of things really, really well. But it definitely did rely on you knowing the content of the previous films really, really heavily. Like if you didn't know, like if you didn't watch The Amazing Spider-Man, like, I worry about what the new generation of kids coming in to watch this movie, the 12-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, that technically are the ones that are really kind of like the mass market that Marvel really pushes towards and tries to aim for. They're not old enough to know what those films are about, those previous films. So
I'm going to quickly jump in right there.
Go
on that point. My nephew is 5. My brother-in-law made him watch the first 3 original Tobey Maguires and the 2 Amazing Spider-Mans with Garfield before, and obviously the Holland films, before he went and saw this at the cinema. And he understood them
so then
to a point, as much as a 5-year-old
so
is like in
then
this day and age can.
Yeah, but then I would say that you're that he was subjected to films that were like far too age inappropriate for him, because those films are not appropriate for a 5-year-old.
We're not questioning parenting here.
We're not. No.
We all watched stuff when we were younger that we definitely weren't allowed to watch.
No, I completely.
We stuck into a lot of 15s. We're at the movies when we were not 15.
I'm one to talk. At the end of the day, my son was literally sitting in this chair this afternoon, and we were watching Endgame together. And like the end scene of Endgame where all the superheroes are fighting, and he absolutely loved it. And he's only 4, so I'm being a bit of a hypocrite. All I'm saying is that, like, the fact that that 5-year-old had to sit through those films just to understand some of the basics of No Way Home, that's, to me, that's a negative. Like a film should be able to stand on its own 2 feet without you having prior knowledge of
I think that's content. That's redundant. That's like saying, okay, watch Return of the Jedi, never watch the other 2. Well, it doesn't work. You don't know anything about the other 2. But of course you don't. It's the same.
I think I disagree. I think Return of the Jedi still would stand alone as, and like I said, I gave it an 8 out of 10. So I'm not saying it's a bad film. I enjoyed it. However, I'm giving you the negatives here, and the negatives are that you do. I know the previous content, and that's why I enjoyed it thoroughly. I think if you came in as someone who hadn't watched that content, you wouldn't probably give it as high a score, which is the same as your Return of the Jedi point. If someone hadn't watched Empire Strikes Back or The Last Hope, they wouldn't find Return of the Jedi an amazing movie. They would have found
But
it.
you don't think it stands alone on its own 2 feet?
I don't think. I don't think.
Relies too much on the legacy films to piece it all together.
Yeah, I think it struggles, and you know, like Super Nintendox is saying that No Way Home, for him was the best. I would say, from a nostalgia perspective, it is, but I preferred Homecoming, like as an overall film, like it stood better, and that film had an element of, it didn't do like, it was actually really surprising when I went to watch that it didn't do an origin story for Spider-Man. He just existed, you know. Even when they introduced him in Civil War, which is like the first time they introduced Spider-Man, he just existed. He was just doing Spider-Man things in New York, right? They didn't feel the need to do. Everyone knows who Spider-Man is. Let's just do a Spider-Man movie, and I thought that worked really, really well. And I think, I think, I don't know. I just, you know, I'm giving you one of the negatives for me is that it needed prior knowledge of previous films. That was one thing, and secondly, I think it did heavily rely on nostalgia, and that's another element, I guess, of the same argument. Another side of the same argument is that it relied on a lot of nostalgia to kind of like bring home some of the points. Now, on the positive side, I think the film was filled with superb moments. Like, you know, there's been very few times in my life that I've been to the cinema and seen people applaud. I went to America, and it's a very different viewing experience. I actually watched Spider-Man 2, the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 in America, and it's a completely different experience when you're in America, because everyone's so emotive. Everyone claps and they cheer on their hero, and they really get behind it, and they're very, very emotional. In the UK, films aren't like that. There's been very few films where they think like those kinds of, where audiences will applaud or they'll cheer. And I only really recall 3 times in my life when that's happened. The first was in the Last Jedi, where Luke Skywalker brushes the dirt off his shoulder after, like, you know, surviving the hail of lasers. The second time, I believe, was has completely like skipped my mind, and was Endgame, where you know, like, Cap, look to your left, and then the first time he says Avengers Assemble, technically in the entire series of Avengers films, because he never actually says it. They always cut it before he says Assemble. And this was the first time he actually like completed the Avengers Assemble thing, and it was a riotous applause for like all the Avengers being there. And the scene where obviously he captures and I'm commenting all this stuff because literally I watched it this afternoon with my son. But like when he catches Thor's hammer, and like just those, like, it was an amazing experience to be in the cinema. And in No Way Home, when you know, when Tobey Maguire walks through the pool, and also the scene at the end of the film. Super Nintendo says that I am Iron Man moment at the end. Endgame, I think, was full of scenes like that where people are riotous, but the end as well, where Spider-Man catches Mary Jane, you know, and and he's in tears, and I've become more of an emotional wreck since I've had kids. That was a moment where I was literally tearing up myself. Like, it was like, wow, okay, that's an emotional
moment. My favorite scene.
Yeah,
my favorite scene in the film. I
think that was my favorite scene in the film as well. Like, it was an amazingly emotional moment. It's fantastically well done. They didn't make it into a joke, which Marvel have a habit of doing. Anytime anything gets too emotional, they always try and throw a joke in there, and they didn't, which I thought was great. Like, they actually gave that moment of room to breathe a little bit. You know, like I said, so many good points about the film. It would have scored higher if it didn't have like the reliance on that nostalgia. But, you know, an 8 out of 10, a 4 out of 5.
Do you expect, though, you know, film producers, directors spend years and years of curating stories, crafting narratives, characterizing, you know, their stars, and for them to kind of throw it away to try and make it super accessible for today's market? I mean, how do you feel about like the new Halo? Halo's a game with significant lore, and, you know, should they be expected to dump all of that just to make it super accessible?
Yeah. in my opinion.
You
I
can't,
look,
you just can't answer it yet.
being accessible for a
I'm-
majority of
I'm-
people
I'm-
doesn't mean that the game's better for you personally.
I'm gonna say why don't you like put that in our little document that we keep on the side, ladies and gentlemen, and we can talk about it in a subject, a hot topic for another time, because it's a gaming topic. This is movies. So, Sanj, what did you think about the movie?
So I definitely am the biggest Spidey fan on the pod. I've been drawing Spider-Man for as long as I can remember being able to hold a pencil. I watched all the TV shows, cartoons in the 90s. Loved the Sam Raimi films. Loved the Garfield films. Even Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yes, even that one. And love the Holland films. So my expectations were very high going into No Way Home. Obviously couldn't get away from spoilers about the others being in it, so I knew it was coming, so I wasn't surprised. But just like you said, Nav, being in a cinema and getting that atmosphere that you only get in certain films, and like you're right, it's only happened in Endgame. It definitely happened maybe in a few others, but I can't recall them off the top of my head. But Endgame's the last one I remember pre No Way Home. And just that feeling, that atmosphere, like people around you, the energy, it made that film score higher than it probably is. So I don't think anything really should ever get 10 out of 10. So I probably would, out of a scale of 10, would be give it a 9. But it was just, you've kind of touched on all the moments that I love as well. And that end scene when Garfield Spider-Man catches, Holland MJ, and then her turning to him and going, "Are you okay?" And then he breaks down. I was tearing up massively. I was like holding, and I was with strangers, so I was like, I cannot cry, cannot cry. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it to bits. The nostalgia points were great. I loved how they wove them in, and even how they wove Ned into the whole storyline, like being able to portal, and they kind of, even though some of it, there's definitely plot holes, like Electro never actually knew that Peter, Spider-Man was Peter Parker, so that kind of screwed the whole kind of thing up. But a lot of people don't even notice it, so it's like it's not a big deal. It's just only for trying to pick it apart.
Trust you to be a guy who'd know a fact like that.
Yeah, I love the films.
Surely because Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man, he knew who Peter Parker was.
Yeah.
So wouldn't he? So but surely he would have told Electro, because obviously Electro fights
But
him.
it doesn't happen on screen, so if you told him off screen,
Okay. I'm trying to defend it now. I'm trying to defend it.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. I mean I didn't care. It was whatever. It could have been a different Electro. I don't know, from a different, not the movie we saw. It could have been in a different multiverse.
Well, I mean, he wasn't.
Which similar events happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, now from this film, there's now talk of maybe Garfield returning for a third one, for a third Amazing Spider-Man, which I'd love to see. So I think this is it brings back all the stuff, and he deserves that bookend. Like Toby got 3 and it wasn't great, but he got his third movie. But Garfield deserves that third movie to kind of.
Does he want to do a third movie?
Yeah, he's dying. He wants to.
I think Garfield's always gushed about how much he loves Spider-Man as a character. Like that guy, you could ask him to do it for free and he probably would. So yeah.
I went back and watched those films because I'd never seen them, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised. The films, they're not great. They're decent. They serve a purpose, but him as Spider-Man, especially, I think he plays Spider-Man really well. He's probably my favorite Spider-Man, to be honest with you. There's something about the way he plays that character. I think he's just really good. I think that his films actually do something that the other Spider-Mans don't, where they actually show him interacting with the everyman. Like there was a scene, it might have been in the sequel, where there's a small child being bullied and he rushes to the aid of this kid and walks him home. And it was a very small throwaway scene in the film, but it was brilliant. It's probably my favorite scene from any Spider-Man film, to be honest with you. That one scene, because it didn't have to be there, but it said so much about his character as Spider-Man. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a third Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I think that'd be quite cool, actually.
Can I quickly ask you, did you cry during this film? Because it seemed like Nav and Sanj did, and I'm not sure if I'm the only one that didn't cry or not. I need an answer, basically.
Unlike Sanj, I'm not afraid to cry in the cinema. I quite enjoy a good tearful moment, but I didn't cry, probably because I'm not as invested in these characters as you guys are, and I watched the Andrew Garfield films after the fact, so him catching MJ wasn't as impactful as it would have been had I seen that film. But people around me were crying, if that's anything to go by.
So I think talking about like the whole like Garfield Spider-Man and Maguire Spider-Man, I always thought Garfield made an amazing Spider-Man as per the title of his movies, and Tobey Maguire made an amazing Peter Parker. So like I think Parker's Spider-Man didn't quite nail the Spider-Man for me, and I thought that Andrew Garfield didn't quite nail the Peter Parker for me. But the opposite ends of that, like I thought, yeah, that was my, and I always thought that's why Tom Holland for me was actually quite good, because I thought he kind of like he walked that line really really well of being good on both.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Garfield's Peter Parker was too cool. He wasn't nerdy enough, whereas then Toby's was too nerdy, too much of a geek, and just a bit of a wet blanket, really. And so I think Holland does balance that enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why he overall is my very favourite, but Garfield is right on his heels.
Yeah, and I agree, Jovi, is like another comment from one of our chatters. I think the darker storytelling in Amazing Spider-Man was definitely something that I preferred as well. Like I quite liked the dark tone of the movies. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Also, New Year, New Anthony as well. Like another set of films that you actually enjoyed. Like, who are you? What have you done with the Anthony we know who hates everything?
I'm sure we're gonna get onto one.
I was bitten by a radioactive spider, and it's changed my outlook on Marvel films.
You were bitten by a radioactive VHS tape, and
Right. So we are gonna go on to the final movie that we all watched. Three of us here went to the BFI in Waterloo to watch it, and that's Matrix Resurrections. So, as Anthony, you didn't go with us. Let's go with you and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, where do I begin? So I guess if we rewind, we all caught that initial trailer, didn't we, before the film came out? And I think, if I remember correctly, we were all reasonably excited for it. I think it actually looked quite decent from that first trailer. No one was expecting this film to be better than the original, I don't think. But based on that trailer, I think it was safe to say that we were hoping Resurrections would at least be as good or better than The Matrix 2 and 3. I watched Resurrections recently, and my personal thoughts are that it actually has a lot of good ideas, but the execution of those ideas are shambolic. This movie, I don't know, it's impressively bad, if I can put it that way. And
there he is. There's the Anthony I know and love.
Yeah, I've been bitten by a radioactive person with taste this time. Yeah, but let it be known, I didn't actually hate this film. I didn't hate it. I feel like the film got better for me as it got worse, if that makes sense. I liked it from the perspective. I didn't really like it from the perspective of it being a good film. I kind of appreciated it from like how you would like The Room. It's so bad it's good in a sense. Production wise, I think Resurrections kind of reminded me of a low budget straight to DVD film that you would catch on Sci-Fi Channel about 2 a.m. It just didn't look like a movie. It looked like a TV show to me. And I think that's something that you guys actually mentioned as well. It doesn't look like a high budget movie. Also, as much as I like Keanu Reeves as a person, and I've enjoyed some of his roles in some films, I won't lie, but I thought he was terrible in this film. I thought his performance was god awful. And overall the film just kind of lacked quality to me. And yeah, I find it quite hilarious that Matrix fans were expecting this sequel. They were expecting a worthy sequel from the original. Kind of feels like a bit of a over elaborate April Fool's joke, really. I feel like a lot of people have been, hurt by how this film panned out. So
with a film with Matrix the original was a revolutionary piece of cinema, and I think fans of the series were expecting or hoping for a return to form. I think maybe that was a part of it, and I'm interested to see what these guys think when we come onto them. Like, what were their expectations coming into this? Because I thought the original Matrix was fantastic. The other two, not so much. Resurrections, again, I think I need to rewatch it to form a solid opinion. I really want to pay more attention to the storyline, but purely in terms of the action scenes, they just weren't spectacular. I was expecting a lot more. I was expecting to be at least wowed by the action scenes, and they were just really subpar. Need to revisit it, but yeah, keen to see what the other guys think.
Right, I'm going to jump in then. I don't hate this movie. I think definitely, when we first came out of the cinema, I was the only one who kind of was close to saying this was good. But I haven't watched it again, but I will. I've just had longer to kind of think over it, and one thing I did come out of saying that, just like Anthony said, it's got a lot of great ideas, but they just didn't execute them at all. And they wasted the cast. Like, I don't think the bit when they did get into the bit where Keanu and Carrie Ann Moss were concentrating on their connection and their love story, that worked. It did work. I did think that those scenes were great, and I just think they just didn't really, they just kind of tried to go into some stupid tangent with loads of other characters that they've had from previous films, like in the middle scene. I guess we're going to go into full spoilers on this as well. So, when they brought back the Merovingian, and like for no reason, it was like literally there for no reason, just to spout some crazy gibberish in French, and then and Matrix is known for its martial arts and literally a tagline, "I know kung fu." And then he literally goes throughout the movie just doing force pushes away. He doesn't do any kung fu, which is mad. It was kind of ridiculous, and I think we'll never know, unless she comes out with what she really did. Is we don't know whether Lana did this on purpose because Warner were going to make the film without her if she didn't come back, and she basically just tanked it. She just right, I'm just going to do everything I can to like screw this up and kill the franchise.
You think she sabotaged it, do you?
A little bit. I think because it just like you wasted, like, Jessica Henwick's amazing, also known for her martial arts. If you've seen another Marvel property, Iron Fist, she's a character in that TV show. She's absolutely amazing. She's got the skills to do all the physical martial arts. Just go and see the cage fight scene in that show, and you'll see that she's more than capable. So it was just frustrating to see this talent, and even Yaya was wasted. Like, he was doing a bit of a caricature of Morpheus, but that was kind of part of the story, so you kind of got why. But it was still wasted, and I don't know whether they was trying to use canon from the Matrix Online or stuff, but Morpheus should have just been in it. Morpheus should have been in the role of what Jada Pinkett Smith's role was. I can't remember her Niobe's role. That should have been him, aged up and
as per canon, if people don't know, in the Matrix Online, which was the MMO that came out after the Matrix 3, that was considered canon. Everything they did for the story of that, and Morpheus is dead. I'm pretty sure and Lana and both the Wachowskis signed off that everything that was going to happen in that was canon. So effectively, he was a dead character, and I respect that they didn't bring him back. They kept that canon. They didn't kind of reverse that.
I've heard alternative stories that it's not canon, but that's why they didn't. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know the full story, like I said, on that, whether they did or not. But either way, it was just the most important, like the best, I think, narrative thread that they just ignored was the story of where the other machines joined the humans. That could have been a great movie on its own, and they just kind of blew past it with like a couple of sentences, and it was his. That's
Oh, I think we're losing Sanj.
Not Sanj.
He's gone off into the Matrix.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, he's fully digitized into the Matrix. So,
that's what happens when you badmouth the Matrix.
Agent Smith has got him.
I was going to say more like Warner Brothers' legal team is swooped down on his internet.
Hello,
you're back.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
There you are.
So, like I said, I don't know what you caught at the end of that, but then when Neo's walking in the Machine City, you see all the other little machines following him because they're like treating him. Oh, what are you doing here? And kind of, oh, I don't have to. Maybe that's the start of their revolution themselves, and them leaving the Machine City and going off and doing so. That shows, I think, what this could have been, and a really great movie. But it just wasn't.
But have they green-lighted sequels to this, or is this like a one-off?
They have specifically said there are no plans for a sequel.
Yeah,
that is after it bombed at the box office though as well. So
exactly.
I think before the film was out, they were kind of saying, "Yep, this is going to be like a new trilogy." They've now turned around saying, "No, that was never the plan. The plan was always to kind of do a one and done, and tie the story off." I know we left it open ended, and so it might turn into another thing, but let's
and like she's pretty much shat on Warner in the film, like she literally does it in the film. So I think there was a clear message to them. But
was that in those Neil Patrick Harris scenes?
No, they literally say, "Oh, Warner, all they're going to do is reboot," and they were talking about the games in the canon of the world.
Oh, got you. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
they were just basically shitting on the studios and rehashing stuff. They were talking about literal rehashing and rebooting stuff, which this obviously was. So it was kind of a meta joke, but I don't think it really was a joke. It was just fuck you to Warner. So, yeah. So what do you think, Nav?
I often kind of I watch a film, and the first time I watch it, I often take 24 hours to process the film, and then give my opinion to people, because I don't like to just kind of walk out the cinema and kind of you're always a little bit more emotional when you walk out. So you always either think the film's really, really good, or you think the film's really, really bad. I always give myself 24 hours to kind of like absorb. And now I walked out of this film like you and Adrian were with me, and we both kind of like I just looked at you guys and said this film is absolute shit. And
you didn't need 24 hours for that one, did you?
Did not need 24 hours to kind of come out with that opinion. I mean, I said I will give myself 24 hours just in case I decide to change my mind, and I didn't. I woke up the next morning thinking, yep, that was as bad as I remember it being. I think it fails in every respect. It fails as a standalone movie. It fails as a sequel. It fails as a standalone. It fails as a sequel. It fails as a continuation. It fails in action. It fails in special effects. In every respect, to me it's a failure of a film. And go on, Adrian. What are you going to say?
I mean, you just have to highlight the fact that both you and Sanj are uber Matrix fans. So what were you expecting?
I consider myself a huge fan of the original movies. I mean, you guys recall, I at one point I was cosplaying Neo, for the second and third films. At the cinema, it was I loved the first film. The second and third films, I was one of the defenders, even though I recognize now that they weren't as great as as I said they were at the time. But just no. I just think that everything in this film was just such a failure. Like you said, Sanj, like the action sequences, he's just force pushing people away. He's not even getting involved in combat. The few times he does actually fight and do kung fu, it's an absolute mess of shaky cam. Anytime there's any action on the screen, it's a mess of shaky cam, modern day, kind of the way you'd film an action scene, not like an old school. The Matrix was a kung fu movie, and this is not how you film kung fu scenes when you fight. You don't have this going on with the camera.
And this another reason why we know that this was her fu to the
at the end of the day,
because she was the fight choreographer.
Well,
she was the fight choreographer.
See, I think
not Master Wu Ping or whatever. It was her.
All I'm at the end of the day, there is what may have happened, but there is actually what the film delivered was poor. Whether she did it on purpose or not, it doesn't matter. The film delivered something that delivered a poor experience when it came to the fight choreography, which is something the originals were known for. Do better. The original Matrix, and I've said this to you guys numerous times now, but the original Matrix film was kind of at the forefront in at least American cinema for the fight choreography when it came out. It was absolutely jaw-dropping and amazing. Everyone loved the fight choreography. It was jaw-dropping when it came to the special effects. No one had seen bullet time before. It had that going for it in the first movie. It had a really interesting premise. The second movie had the Burly Brawl. Again, amazing fight choreography, amazing special effects. It also had it had another scene as well. So it had the Burly Brawl, and it had a second scene which I'm failing to recall. And then the third one had the defense of Zion and the special effects spectacle of the defense of Zion. These things, and then the end fight scene, which again, you look back at it now, the CGI is definitely aged, but at the time it was absolutely jaw dropping. That stuff. You would
and also Chad Stahelski was in the movie as playing
a guy called Chad. Yeah, Chad. The guy who, which if the audience don't know, it's so the character who plays Chad in the movies is actually was the original stuntman who played who stunt doubled for Neo in the original Matrix films, and
also
now
John Wick,
and now he's the director and writer of John Wick. Yeah, so he's moved on in his career, and he came back and did his thing. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's just there was lots of nods and references to real world stuff, and it's very meta. And I'm sure Lana and whoever she had help her write it, or the screenwriters, patting themselves on the back for how clever they are, and how how subversive the film is, and how meta, and how much all the commentary on remakes and rehashes and all of that stuff. Fact is, I don't care. I just wanted a good film that at least at a base level did something special. And this film did nothing special. It did not deserve my money at the cinema, at the box office. I felt ripped off walking out of that movie, and I just feel that's a real damn shame. And also the fact that they rewrite some of the stuff, and this kind of goes into kind of modern day stuff of rewriting previous stories to kind of make other characters feel more relevant. The fact that they rewrite it into saying you weren't the one, it was the love between you and Trinity was the one. That's what kind of made it. It's no, don't do that. He was the one. Don't depower him. Keep him strong. Just put the analyst in as someone who's because he's new and he's different and he's the next generation. He's maybe on par with you. Just do something that is. Just do something intelligent. And this film just felt like just a big fuck you to Matrix fans, in my opinion. I love Keanu Reeves and everything he does, but not this film. Yaya was, like you said, sounds massively underused. He's such a good actor in so many things. Again, like you say, Jessica Henwick, great actress, could have been fantastic. Underused her. Priyanka Chopra was underused. Jada Pinkett. I could take Jada Pinkett.
His son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there could have been so much. There could have been so much stuff that they did to it, and they didn't. And this felt like bad fan fiction. like not even good fan fiction. This felt like a bad fan fiction like script, and I can't forgive them for that. You know, like even in my head now, and this is going to be my one Will Smith reference of the podcast. I always try to do one. They could have even, like, Will Smith was supposed to originally play Neo in the movies before he turned down the role and decided to do Wild Wild West. They could have brought Will Smith into it as a character, you know, just kind of like done some clever stuff there, and that would have saved the movie because Will Smith is amazing and everything. But
what would have been brilliant is that Neo, what he saw in the real life, was Will Smith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something just yeah, that would that would have been amazing. Point is, yeah, I think it's a massively wasted like opportunity. Like the thing, like I said, I score it like out of 5. For me, the film hits like it's a 1 purely, and that's only purely because it exists. You know, like it didn't. I'd give it a 0 if it was a failure in every respect. It was a film that they competently put onto a film and put it into the cinema screen in front of me. Did it deserve my money? No. Like, I enjoyed the popcorn and the hot dog in the cinema more than I enjoyed the movie. That's my opinion of that film.
I don't hate it as much as that. I probably would give it a 2.
And
Out of what, 100 or?
out of 5, mate.
I'm joking.
Out of 100, mate, minus a negative 3.
I'll still stand by the fact I found it quite amusing. I found it funny. I don't know, maybe I've got a bit of a deranged sense of humour, but I don't know. I don't. It's not that I enjoy seeing things fail or fall flat on their face, but I kind of do in a way. I must do. There's all this hype for it, and then I was laughing watching it. I was turning to my partner. And I was like, "What is this? This is like a low budget TV show. This is the new Matrix movie. What is going on?" There's a scene with Keanu when he's in the bathroom, and he's like, "No, wait a minute." And the acting is so bad, and I've never thought he's the best actor in the world, but even for his standards, it was poor, man. It was really bad. But that's what led me to think this is a comedy. Someone's winding up the audience here, because someone must be aware.
Well,
right?
Yeah, Lana was. She fully knew what she was doing.
So she says.
Yeah.
You know, this is very easy for someone to say, haha, it was a joke. JK, JK.
No, she's not.
After the film's come out doing terrible. Okay, fine. I mean, it's just one of those things.
Everyone else is saying it.
It's when I deliver a dad joke and then you guys all groan up. Hey, JK, wasn't being serious. No.
Anyone have any final thoughts on the Matrix Resurrections?
Adrian, what's your 10 out of 10?
I mean,
As a joke.
I need to go and revisit it. I'll just say 3 out of 5 for the time being, because I'm being generous, giving it the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, it did have problems. It didn't live up to any kind of legacy expectations. So it looks like it's a resounding flop from the perspective of the Kids Have No Idea podcast crew. So
you know what? Kids have no idea how good the original Matrix was in the cinema. That's the problem.
Yeah, they don't.
That's true.
They do now.
They have to suffer. They have to suffer through this new age crap. You know, wow. Kids will think bullet time is Neil Patrick Harris walking while everyone else is in slow motion. No, that brings a tear to my eye. It does.
He was the best part of the movie.
He was one of the best things of the movie, to be fair.
Oh yeah, I love MPH. Love MPH. Don't know everything he does.
Oh, is he your Will Smith?
Oh, no, I wouldn't go that far. But How I Met Your Mother, Barney is one of the best TV characters of all time.
Barney is my hero in a lot of ways, and clearly Jovi agrees with us. I'm assuming he's talking about MPH.
I just like him in the Harold and Kumar movies. I think
he's also amazing in the Harold. I mean, whenever he plays himself, he's amazing. I think as well. It's like this kind of overblown kind of version of himself. This complete bullshit version of himself.
He does it so well.
That's not him. I told him.
No, exactly. That's the point. Like this whole kind of like when he plays himself to like, yeah, this womanizing,
He's
like crazy,
taking
like,
the piss out of
yeah,
himself,
just
basically.
yeah, he just plays
You know
that.
he's gay,
Yes,
right?
yeah. Just the fact that he plays
That's
it
why I
so
think it's
well.
brilliant.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's brilliant. He's like playing the straight character so well.
Yeah.
Like the womanizer, he just plays it. Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. It's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant.
Indeed.
Right, I think instead of going into Ghostbusters, I think, Adrian, you fell asleep watching it. I think we'll leave that for next week.
Yeah.
But I think we'll go into maybe recommendations of what you've seen and maybe in the last month or so since we've been off the air. Anything you want to recommend? I will go first so you guys can got a little time to think about it. Something I watched yesterday was a movie called The Fallout. It's I don't want to go too much detail about it, but it's basically about two young girls who survive a school shooting, and they're kind of the fallout of this like school shooting. It's a kind of character piece. It's not like there's no massive thread or plot line. It's just kind of they like what happens after it and how they cope, and it's just brilliantly acted. It's just brilliantly acted. I'm gonna butcher her name, but I'm gonna quickly look it up because I've forgotten it off the top of my head. It's one of those films that you just get like you get a visceral feeling from it as well. It's just really really good. It's Jenna Ortega and Maddie Ziegler. So that's something I would fully recommend you guys watching and anyone else out there watching. And I'm going to get a quick second one in, which is a TV show which I binge watched last weekend, which is Archive 81. I don't really watch kind of suspense horror type shows, so it's definitely something I don't normally in my wheelhouse of stuff I watch. It's actually because Hideo Kojima actually posted it on Twitter about it, so that's why I ended up watching it. And I do not regret it. I binge watched it all in one go on this last Sunday. It's amazing. It's a quite slow pace, but the sound design is so amazing that I got chills and like heart palpitations, visceral feeling from like some of the tense scenes. So yeah, another really good recommendation was that on Netflix. What about you guys then? And who wants to go next?
I have two films I watched very recently that I can recommend. I recently watched The Tender Bar, which came out tail end of last year, directed by George Clooney, stars Ben Affleck, and it's basically a movie about. It's actually a true story. It's a memoir of a writer, and it's just about him growing up in the 60s, 70s. His first love, his university days, him growing up in this small town as well. Just a very very good movie about his relationship with his father. His father wasn't really around. Just a very very good film, and I highly recommend it. It's called The Tender Bar. It's actually the only film I've watched this year that I've given a perfect 5 out of 5 score to. And the second film I'd like to recommend, which I only watched last night, was actually The Invisible Man, which is kind of a remake movie. Just came out onto Netflix recently. Came out in 2020, so it's not new, but it's American movie about this woman who's in an abusive relationship with this tech genius. She manages to escape, and guess what? The tech genius figures out how to become invisible, and then it kind of the whole film plays out like kind of a suspense horror movie where she kind of thinks she's going mad, and he kind of makes it so that other people think she's going mad and she's losing it, but it's just him fucking with her for an hour and a half. The film probably drags on a little bit long, but it was interesting. And if you like kind of like this, if you like horror, if you like and it's not horror in the traditional sense, quite like suspenseful horror, if you like that kind of element, really interesting premise, really interesting movie. I recommend you guys check that out. That stars I can't recall her name, but she was the main actress in
from Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale, yeah, the main woman from that. She acts it fairly well, and I don't know who the guy who acts as the Invisible Man is because you barely see him in the movie. So because he's invisible.
Why is that, Nav?
So those are my two recommendations. Like I would highly recommend The Tender Bar, and I think The Invisible Man was was a good alternative as well for someone who likes something that might give them a bit of a chill.
Yeah, it was a fun popcorn film. I saw that at the Everyman Cinema, and it was fun. Quite liked it. It was a surprise.
You liking films, mate? I can't get over it.
Yeah, New Year,
I
New
enjoyed
Me.
it as well, and I don't do horror either. So
Well, you did a horror, didn't you? The Matrix Resurrections, scariest film of the year for me. Movie-wise, has to go to Licorice Pizza. It was fantastic. Coming of age tale set in the period piece set in the 1970s. You have two central cast, young teenage characters. Lead cast Alana Haim. You might know her from the band Haim. Her sisters, who are also in the band, they have quite major roles in this film. Her actual real life family play her family in the movie, and her on-off boyfriend in the movie, who's the second central character, is the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, Cooper Hoffman, and he plays Gary Valent in the movie. This was a surprise. I was looking forward to it. There was a lot of, well, someone who was my previous uni teacher. He has like a BFI entry, so he sees all these films before they actually come out, and he's been raving about it for months on end. So I thought, every time I bump into him, it's, oh, you must see it, you must see it. I was like, okay. So I finally saw it. I was just captivated by this film from beginning to end. Gets a 9 out of 10 for me. It's one of those coming of age films where it's not necessarily about anything specific. It's about like a myriad of different things happening between like a 5-year cycle. It's a bit like, although it's not set out in as long a time period, but it kind of reminded me of Do the Right Thing, the Spike Lee film. Just the way it's not about anything specific, but things pan out. You feel like a fly on the wall. Things are just happening, and you're kind of there for the ride. And you get really invested in these characters. Bradley Cooper is amazing in it. He's only in it for like 10 to 20 minutes of screen time, but he's just this really intense, scary, womanizing character. And there's one scene in particular that had everyone in the cinema on the edge of their seats. It was great. It's not for everyone, but it's the kind of film I gravitate towards, and I can't recommend it enough. That's Licorice Pizza. And my second recommendation is season 4 of The Sinner, which is a Netflix crime show, and it stars Bill Pullman of what's he been in? Independence Day?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
He was in Torchwood, a TV show. He's been in loads of stuff.
Yeah, well, he's fantastic in this. I think each season sees him going to a different town and solving a completely different mystery. And he is a flawed character himself. And you would have to kind of go back and, like Nav was saying, he doesn't really like things that he considers it a hindrance of a movie or series when it kind of relies on what came before it, and you have to catch up and fill yourself in. It's a bit like that. You do have to go back mostly just to understand him as a character and his flaws and what he's overcome. But this is great. It's just a really well made detective crime show, and it does have a lot of tropes that you see in other crime shows out there, but it's just so well done, so well acted. And besides Bill Pullman, I think a cast of newbies. I've never seen any of these actors, and they're all fantastic. So highly recommend it. I mean, if you're willing to go back and watch the previous seasons, I also recommend those. And that's The Sinner.
Right, thanks for your recommendations, everyone. I'm just going to keep it simple and recommend This Is Us, which is a TV series which is available to watch now on Amazon Prime. And it's just a story of 3 triplets and them going through life with their parents and their ups and downs. I poked fun at everyone about being emotional in the cinema and seeing those heartfelt moments, but this is a real emotional program, which the writing, the acting, everything is absolutely stupendous. So many scenes where I've had a lump in my throat. I really can't put into words how good this TV series is, and I just implore everyone to watch it. I'm not really doing a great job of selling it, but you must watch This Is Us. Absolutely amazing. I don't have a second thing to nominate. I've only focused on This Is Us at the moment. I probably need to delve more into TV series and films in the future instead of playing Halo. But that's it for
Quite
me.
far into This Is Us, and
Um,
I can only mimic what you're saying by the fact it's highly emotionally driven, and I was like, Paula was laughing at me because I was crying. I was in tears. Like every other episode, it's ridiculous.
Gosh.
I had to stop watching it. She banned me from watching it.
To be honest, it's
Season 1 as well is like I've watched season 1. I couldn't watch anymore because I just was bloody crying all the time.
oh. So I don't. So Adrian recommended this to me a few weeks ago. So I started watching it. I'm on like episode 7 or 8 now of the show, and I don't know what you guys are on about. Not emotional at all. You guys are just a bunch of pussies. That's what I say.
You're just heartless.
Dead inside.
I'm
You're just dead
just
inside.
dead inside. Yeah.
or you're trying to act big in front of the podcast.
I am trying to act. Well, I admitted I was crying in the. I mean, Spiderman. That kind of stuff really hits home. Aunt May. But nah, just nothing in that show was remotely emotional. I lie. It's very emotional. It's a very good show.
I've seen like a YouTube clip for like 2 minutes and it made me cry from that bloody thing.
Oh well.
But I'm emo as fuck.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. So
Till next week.
Till next week.
yeah, I guess that's it on the agenda. So thanks to everyone in the chat who's joined us today. It's been a pleasure having you, and it's been great. It's been fun. First time doing a live stream, and I think it's been good. It's been a good laugh. So until next time, guys, it's signing out from me, Anthony.
Me from Adrian.
From me, Sanj.
And from me, Nav. I'm just going to give you guys a reminder. Please do hit that follow button to kind of follow us. We plan to do live streams once every couple of weeks. We're still posting this entire set of content. Will be available on YouTube as well as on Spotify. If you don't want to watch our beautiful faces, you can just listen to us. And also on iTunes. So we're available out on all digital platforms, bruv. If some of you audience members will get that reference.
And you do have a face for radio as well.
I think
do tune in on Spotify,
bro. If anyone has a face for radio, it's me. You're right. Okay. Bye bye, everybody.
Ciao.
So long, guys. Bye bye.